and welcome back to ClearCast, the real estate fintech podcast. This is a very exciting episode because it's episode 21. Thank you for holding up your fingers like that. That means that this podcast is officially old enough to drink a beer.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations. I'm Jeff Allen, joined as always by my friend and colleague, Kenon Chen. How are you, Kenon?
I'm doing good, thank you. How
Excellent.
are you?
I'm also great. Thank you for asking. We have a really fun episode. We're being joined later today by Daniel Mishin, who's the founder and CEO of June Homes, and talk about some very interesting things that they're doing to disrupt the rental space. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about the news, Kenon.
Oh, well, I think there's lots of things happening in the news, but one thing that jumped out at us, because of course we talk about real estate fintech, which includes the wonderful world of prop tech, and apparently 2021 is a record in investment in prop tech. $9.5 billion has been invested in terms of funding in 2021, which exceeds the previous record in 2019 of $9 billion. So an extra $0.5 billion. And this comes courtesy of Next Mortgage News. Thank you. It highlights some of the companies that have really closed pretty big rounds of funding this year, but it seems to be really accelerating. And one of those companies is backed by no other than Amazon, backing a startup called SmartRent. Did you see that, Jeff?
I did. And if you think about what SmartRent does, it makes a lot of sense. SmartRent is a smart home automation solution provider, but it's specifically focused on apartment rental as one of its main verticals, and giving folks who operate and manage, big portfolios of property, specifically rental property, it gives them some pretty interesting tech solutions to manage things like showings, giving people the ability to unlock their apartments with their mobile app instead of an old-fashioned key. So kind of a whole tech stack around it, which is actually pretty fitting because we've got, Daniel from June Homes joining us later to talk about some of their solutions in this space. And SmartRent, Amazon backed, makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Amazon's got that whole Alexa thing. Do you have an Alexa, Kenon?
No, we had a falling out, actually.
I'm so sad to hear you say that because I had one Alexa, but now I have like 7 Alexas.
Oh, wow.
So I
Well,
doubled down.
She heard me talking to Siri and it got ugly from there.
Understood. So, but Amazon had made big investments in SmartRent, and then this year SmartRent, kind of went to the next level and did a SPAC, merged with a SPAC. I feel like we're hearing this term every other day now, SPAC. So they were highlighted in the article. Definitely a group that we're going to be keeping a close eye on.
You just like saying it, I think.
SPAC. SPAC. Another company that's moving and shaking with some new investment is a company you know pretty well, Kenon, called Simple Nexus. They just announced a pretty big deal.
Yeah, they just sold for $1.2 billion in November, which is half of the valuation, of course, of SmartRent, what we were just talking about, but still a chunk of change. And they describe themselves as a developer of the mobile-first home ownership platform. They are not a point of sale. They will tell you that. They're not a point of sale. They are a digital lending platform, but that's mobile-first. The digital mortgage movement is alive and well, and I think when you put all these things together, the idea a more streamlined process on the purchase side, on single family rental, on all the things up front, and then the investment in platforms that really streamline the finance side of things. I mean, we're set for a pretty transformational 2022, I think.
Yeah, with the level of investment that has been going on the last couple of years, because don't forget, 2021 was a record year for prop tech investment, but that was on the heels of 2019 being the previous record. And 2020 only came down a little bit, and that was largely driven by a temporary pause due to the pandemic, probably. So we're on a multi-year trend of more and more investment coming into prop tech, real estate, and fintech. Eventually, well, we can already start to see it, but eventually it's really going to start to turn into real industry innovation.
Yeah. And now we're going to take the next hour and dogpile on Zillow for pulling out of iBuying.
Let's not do that.
Oh, okay, we're not going to do that.
There has been way too much dogpiling on Zillow. They went after a problem that was very hard to solve. They went after it hard. They admitted their mistakes. They regrouped. There's been a little too much satisfaction from the chattering classes about their departure from iBuying, don't you think?
Yeah, I think the term is called Monday morning quarterbacking. Is that the correct sports analogy, Jeff?
I'm impressed that you got that right.
Thank you. And what that stands for is that quarterbacks on Monday morning sometimes play on Monday to get a head start on Monday Night Football. Is that right?
Absolutely incorrect, but I loved hearing you try to get it right. Well, from some serious topics to an even more serious topic. Are you ready for the joke of the pod?
Oh, this is going to get serious. Yes. Yes, I am. No, I'm not ready, but I'm gonna try to quarterback it.
Monday morning it. Out of respect for you, this is a little bit shorter of a joke this time. Oh. There's less lead in.
Yeah. Christmas has come early.
So there's this real estate agent, right? And everyone is super scared of him. Like, they think that he might physically harm them. Oh. Like, when people see him in dark alleys, he doesn't even have to do anything. They literally pee in their pants when they see him in the alley. Yeah. And they run away as fast as possible. Super weird, right?
Very weird, yes.
Like, why are they so worried about like physical violence from this one realtor's? Well, first, he's actually super buff. Like, he has massive muscles. Like, he's incredibly ripped and jacked, I believe is the phrase that people would use to describe this guy. He probably benches.
Scary?
Yeah. I mean, if you saw a guy like that, you'd be a little freaked out, right? Huh. He can probably bench press like 6,000 pounds. It's a lot.
That's a lot.
Second, he's got kind of a unique business model, actually. He doesn't represent buyers and sellers like a traditional agent. He's actually somebody who just buys houses that are a little run down, need a little work, maybe a little outdated, and then he fixes them up and resells them for more money than he bought them for. So why would that make everybody so scared of him bringing physical violence on them?
I don't usually see that thing happen on HGTV, so.
Well, it's obvious. Wouldn't you be scared of a guy who could literally flip a house? Do you get it? That's kind of lame. The other ones have all been really good. That one was a little lame.
What? Why do they have to be scared of him, though?
Because he can flip a house.
Yeah,
that takes a lot of strength to do that.
But
and
some
he's
people
jacked.
think some people. but it seems like, that could be cool too, right? Like, everyone wants to be around him because he can flip a house.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not excusing the behavior of these people. I'm just explaining like what's literally happening.
It just seems very, it just seems very stereotypical, that like just
Yeah,
because someone is I mean, I I feel because of the size of my muscles that I'm being
yeah.
discriminated against
I think that's
because of
fair.
how jacked I am,
I
obviously.
I I am a little frightened by them, actually, most of the time. I'm not excusing their behavior, like I said. It's just I'm just explaining, kind of what I've been hearing about this situation.
Now it's a news report.
Okay, we are very happy now to be joined by Daniel Mishin. And Daniel is the founder and CEO of a company called June Homes. And they're a prop tech startup that's challenging outdated practices to improve the rental experience for tenants and landlords alike. Daniel, thanks for joining.
Jeff, Kenon, great to be here.
Hey Dan, so it's great to have you on. Um, First of all, I just wanted to get your take on a piece that I saw on your website, which is you talked about the new generation of renters. And I wanted to see, obviously you're thinking about that as we get more into what June Homes does, but how do you describe who the new generation of renters are and what they care about? Are expectations changing from what used to be expected for rentals and where things are headed?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think renters is basically, I want to say that there's no like one answer to that question because you essentially have so many different subgroups of different people who live completely different lifestyles. And someone who is a digital nomad who travels around the world and basically spends every night in different places, also a renter. So, but if we speak about majority of people, I think things that are actually changing and that are actually becoming unique are the things that people are starting to split their time between multiple different locations, and they're starting to travel more than they have in the past. So what we are seeing and what we think is happening is essentially your traditional long-term 12 months rental category is becoming shorter because tenants are coming back to their landlords and they're saying, hey, can I do a month, 2 months lease? Hey, can I do a 9 months lease? Can I do a 6 months lease? Can I do a 7 months lease? They're looking for that flexibility because A, they're not really certain where they're going to be a year from now, and B, they basically want to split time between different cities. Someone might be for 9 months a year in New York and then 3 months a year with their parents in Ohio. And that kind of use case was really not a mainstream use case before, but it is becoming a mainstream use case today. So long-term leases are becoming short. That's just what like part one. It's kind of like it's mainstream media at this point that covers this. It's kind of like becoming a new major trend. It's been a trend before COVID. It just was accelerated with the COVID. But then what's also interesting is that short-term stays are becoming longer. Because if you think about it, there are two interesting trends that are happening there. Short-term regulations is changing in all major US markets. Cities that initially permitted short-term stays like Boston, DC, and other cities are changing their regulations back to restricting short-term stays to 30 days minimum in residential real estate. And two, that's like trend one and tailwind one. And tailwind two, when people work and travel at the same time, they call it workation or whatever the fancy word is. They tend to travel for longer because they need work setups. They don't want to basically travel during the weekdays. They want to travel on the weekends so that they don't have to take time off work. And you have those trends pushing minimum stay duration for short-term stays longer. So long-term leases becoming shorter, short-term leases becoming longer, and we think that pretty much as we speak, a new category is being created, a category of on-demand flexible housing. That's sort of how we think about it.
I love that term, on-demand flexible housing. And if an uninitiated person was to go to your website, June Homes, and start looking around, they'd see a lot of stuff that normally one might associate with maybe a typical apartment listing site, right? There's lots of apartments available. You can search, you can look on maps. And so if somebody like didn't know any better, they might think, oh, this is an apartment listing portal. But really what June Homes does is way more than that. You guys are touching the whole process, and seem to be attacking everything, including stuff like payments processing after the fact. So can you walk us through kind of all the different parts of the rental process you guys are working through?
Sure. So we are bucketed to this bucket called Managed Marketplace bucket, which essentially means that it's a marketplace, but it's a more vertical version of the marketplace, a more like sort of like extended experience version of the marketplace. And what that actually means is that we have two sides of our marketplace. We have landlords and then we have tenants. We call landlords investors, we call tenants residents. So, and essentially our residents, the value prop to our residents is that we are essentially giving them access to this branded real estate where they can rent apartments from June Homes, acting as their landlord. And all of our leases are flexible, any duration between 1 to 12 months. They can essentially choose how long they want to stay, and the longer they stay, the cheaper it gets. So there is a complete flexibility on the duration side. But they're fully customizable. Right on the website, they can choose how they want their units delivered to them, furnished, unfurnished, or partially furnished, and essentially customize their rental. And they could say, hey, I want this couch, this light fixture, this bed, and on the day of their move-in, we essentially are going to deliver the unit in the way they want it. And then three, it's much more streamlined experience. Apartment renting is crazy. It's very outdated. It's very long. It takes forever. It's very unstructured. It's very manual. So what we've done is we've essentially built a lot of technology to streamline the entire process. Your typical rental application in a city like New York or San Francisco could take up to 3 weeks. In June Homes, it takes 3 hours. You go online, you download an app, and in the app, you find apartments, you tour apartments in the app right there online. You have transparent marketing materials. Every apartment has floor plans, videos, 3D tours, descriptions, photos, and we collect 250 plus data points about each apartment. So we literally display way more information than anyone else on the web about each unit. And then once you found an apartment that you like, you can sign up, you can do a virtual tour online within 15 minutes, no scheduling, no back and forth, no emails, no texts, essentially right there online. And you can apply within a factor of minutes, and you're going to get a reply within 3 hours. You can sign the lease same day and move in same day. And then once you stay with us, you have a 24/7 in-app concierge that communicates with you about any of the issues. So it's like this like Gen Z millennial experience, very streamlined, very simple, no commitments, no upfront costs, no broker fees, no furniture costs, none of that. And that essentially was our product before COVID. That was accelerated post-COVID, and we have very strong product market fit on the tenant side. Now on the landlord side, and by the way, this product is not necessarily new. Corporate housing existed for the last 40, 50 years. Furnished housing existed for the last 40, 50 years. But what's really new is the fact that back in the day, it was a product for Fortune 500 corporations that essentially send their project managers to New York City to work on in client's office for 2 months, and they were willing to pay 300% premium for that. What we're doing differently is we're essentially giving access to everyday consumers to that flexibility and furnished rentals. Our prices are within 10 to 15% range of traditional unfurnished 12-month leases. That's the biggest unlock. The biggest unlock is that it just becomes more affordable and more, and the total addressable market expands. Now, the landlord side, and the way we achieve that is by working with landlords and doing something very specific on the landlord side. So our traditional landlords are mom and pop landlords, individuals. 72% of all multifamily in the US is owned by individuals, not Fortune 500 REITs. So we focus specifically on mom and pop individuals. And then the second thing that we do is we build an algorithm that essentially analyzes all of the public rental listings that come live in any major American city, and in real time detect rental listings that are mispriced relative to the rest of the market. And then June Homes team essentially acquires mispriced rental assets, like an iBuyer would acquire a mispriced building listed for sale, a single family home listed for sale. We do the same thing on the rental side. So we acquire mispriced rental assets, we quickly fix and flip them in 72 hours using standard templated designs and using up and basically performing standard upgrades, and then we remarket them to our tenants. And to the landlord, the benefit is that we essentially cut down on any middleman fees. They never have to pay brokers. They never have to pay management companies. We cut down their time on market by 10 times. So we lease their units 10 times faster than on traditional market. And then we basically eliminate most of their risks associated with being a landlord, like guaranteeing their tenants rent. And oh my God, that was a very long answer to a very simple question.
Well, I mean, I love it because you've obviously kind of dove deep into the problems that exist today and figuring out how to put together an end-to-end experience. I mean I even heard in there that you can customize what furniture or what that you want, like how you want it set up for you as a renter. I mean, for you to do this at scale and make it frictionless, I mean, there's got to be some challenges in that are hard to solve. What are some of those things you've had to overcome?
I think number one issue with residential real estate disruption is that most startups don't realize that residential real estate is a hyper-local business. So everyone is trying to apply one size fits all, and another clever startup is basically, and another clever founder is like, I know, I figured it out. I know what real estate wants. I'm going to basically crush it right now. Here's one size fits all. And then you realize that every single owner is really different. Within London, there is 9 different regulations within 9 different boroughs. New York has different marketing in Manhattan versus Brooklyn versus Queens versus Bronx. It's completely different real estate markets, and you cannot apply one size fits all. So the single biggest challenge for us as a business was to really, how do you become scalable, fast-growing company while remaining boots on the ground and being hyper-local? That's really the biggest challenge. And basically building technology to make it efficient and to make it streamlined was really the only way we could think about it. But to answer your question directly about furniture, it's a difficult operations problem, but it's not a deal breaker to the business. It's just something we had to build technology to solve.
I love that kind of confidence that even a really hard problem to solve like that can be solved through technology. That's very cool. So obviously deciding that you're going to try to tackle, I mean, that whole laundry list of stuff you went through of like, well, we're doing this, like, that's a lot. If you were going to summarize like everything that you guys are attempting to solve for in the rental process, it would be that word, everything. Like you're literally trying to make every step of the process less friction filled. So how did that vision for you come to be? What was the kind of the flashbulb moment for you personally, that led you down the path towards June Homes?
Yeah, the founding story. So essentially, I've been in hospitality-real estate before June. So I've built a company in Europe that I sold, exited in 2015. It was one of the largest youth hostel operators, backpackers, youth hostels, basically that kind of thing. And sort of like came here to the US in 2017 with like a certain idea. That idea totally failed within the first couple of months. And I was looking for an apartment to rent myself in New York. And like, I mean, it goes without saying that my experience as a renter was just terrible. I was rejected outright by every single broker. I didn't have US credit score. I didn't know what the hell is social security number. It was just impossible, right? So, but putting that aside, what was the real aha moment? And there's multiple aha moments versus just one. Was that I was looking for a one bedroom in Hell's Kitchen, and the average price was like $3,000. And then, like, while I was sitting on StreetEasy or Zillow, I essentially saw that there is this apartment that is like half of market price, and I initially thought that it's fraud or that it's some bait and switch tactic. But I was like got really curious about like, why is this one bedroom so much cheaper than the rest of the stock on the market? And essentially went to tour it, basically checked it out, and realized that this building is owned by the same mom and pop landlord for the last 40 years. She essentially has just one building. She's a non-professional landlord, doesn't really know how to operate it, doesn't really know how to run it. The apartment needs work. So it's basically unrenovated relative to the rest of the market. Got really curious, signed a 5-year lease myself, went to Brighton Beach, got a bunch of Russian guys, basically paid them cash, renovated apartment in 72 hours, and essentially remarketed it at market price. And overnight, you take a physical asset, a building that's worth tens of millions of dollars, maybe not tens, maybe millions of dollars, and you essentially create upside, and you essentially create 40% more cash flow overnight, without having to own the asset, without having to hold the risk of being a landlord, and you essentially create this passive cash flow. And I was like, oh my God, this is really, really interesting. Is this even scalable? Maybe it's an outlier. Maybe there's just one apartment like this in the entire universe. And then I essentially build a data science team. We couldn't find any available data, so we basically built a data science team, scraped every single website that we could find, build a model, and realized that, oh my God, there is a subset of 10 to 15% of all apartments that are mispriced relative to the rest of the market. What if we build a business around fixing and flipping? And that was the initial idea. And then it changed a gazillion different times internally.
I'd like to see what those meetings look like where it's changing internally. It's
all the time. Every time you think like you figured it out, because you haven't, which is like the fun part about running startups.
Yeah, I mean, fix and flip rentals. Um, that's something you don't hear, every day, especially at scale. Um, uh, in fact, I mean, it seems like you've been able to inspire investors. You just closed on your Series B. Congratulations. Looks like you did a raise of 27 million. And did we see that Demi Lovato is involved in that? Is that the same one that I'm thinking of, the singer?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so we got a lot of great investors involved. The round was led by SoftBank Group, and Demi Lovato is basically she's famous for like philanthropy and sort of like her social involvement. And what you saw here is what they saw here is essentially the opportunity to. I mean, if you think about housing, housing is such an essential need. It is social for a reason, and there is an argument to be made that housing really determines the quality of life for a lot of people. And yes, startups are not really well built to solve affordable housing problem, which is basically what governments and NGOs can do. But startups can improve experience for everyday consumers in mid-market segment. And the way a company like ours creates value in the world is essentially by eliminating inefficiencies and inefficient transaction costs and inefficient processes, and hopefully building a better process around it. So I think what they got excited is really about the idea of changing and improving the quality of living for younger people, like majority mass market everyday consumers who basically are completely underserved in this market today.
Yeah, with your story too of coming here and not having all the US attributes you need, credit score and social security number and all those things. One of the other guests that we had talked about how difficult it is as an immigrant coming over and buying a home too, right? And needing to present as a cash buyer to even get in the market. And is there an aspect that you're thinking of as well too, like how you help people get qualified instead of doing the whole dog and pony show that you typically have to do to win out against other potential renters for a property?
Yeah, I mean, to a degree. The thing about disqualifications is the only reason they exist, and the only reason there's very tedious process is because how fundamentally broken the legal system is. So it all starts there. It all starts with backlogged housing courts that take years to process any eviction and rightful eviction. So we essentially, we're going to change everything. We're going to change the entire system. But what we can do is we can streamline the process. We can remove inefficiencies and we can build technology to make it better. And we can basically share more information with people so they understand how to do it. So yes, June Home's requirements are simpler in some places, but overall they're not like dramatically different than the rest of the market. What is different is the process and the experience, where you log in the app and you can see exactly what you need to upload. You can, instead of going and finding a copy machine, and by the way, where do you even find a copy machine? I don't even know how the hell they look anymore. So you have an app and you just take a photo and you basically upload it and you're done, and that's it. And that's the entire process, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So that's probably the real change.
Yeah. So you guys have come a long way. You've innovated quite a bit. You have this new round of funding. So to kind of close us out here today, why don't you give us a sense for where you're going next? What's the part of the June Home story that's coming up next that has you most excited?
Well, I mean, we have very we're very shy and humble people, so we want to build the world's largest housing company that doesn't own any single property. So our goals are very humble.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're growing fast, and we're building a company, and we still have a lot of learning to go through. We'll announce some new cities soon, and that's kind of where we are in the journey. And excited to be here. Love the podcast. Watched a lot of episodes last night, and I think you guys doing something very special here.
And Jeff, I mean, what are you going to do with your big Xerox machine you got there in your office?
Well, you said you didn't even, Dan, you said you didn't know how to find a copy machine yet. Just call me. I've got a bunch of
Let's do it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been fun learning more about the June Homes story, and we'll talk again soon, I hope.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, best of luck. Thanks, man.
All right, thanks.